How's it going, guys? So after a solid week of hard work, determination, and an unhealthy lack of sleep, my project is finally finished. The Zombie Bite Gauntlet. It's fully articulated, features a detachable bracer, and looks really freaking cool. I am so tired right now that I don't really know what else to say. So here's how you build it. To start off, you're gonna need some pliers, a ruler, some tacks, an X-Acto knife, a Sharpie, some kind of pen, that's optional, a pair of comfortable, well-fitting gloves, some construction board, just like this, sort of just like cardboard. It's just kind of thick paper, and then optionally you can have like some index cards or some just regular construction paper. So first put the glove on, and then we're gonna mark where the knuckles are. You can't really see it way too well on the camera, but I can see it well enough in real life. So now we're just gonna start taking some measurements. And by the way, if you want the Sharpie to show up a little better on the glove, I would suggest like a metallic silver or gold Sharpie. As you can see, black Sharpie on black leather is kind of difficult to see. Now I'm gonna do one of the more simple gauntlet designs. For the fingers, as opposed to having a plate on each bone and then another plate going over each knuckle and then all the rivets being all on the side, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a plate on each bone. This one's gonna lay flat, and then this one is going to overlap on top of the flat one, and then the one on the fingertip is gonna overlap on top of the middle one. I'm not sure yet if I wanna do the rivets in the side or if I'll just do them on top. We'll see once we get there. And then the knuckle plate will overlap over that plate, and then I'll probably do some articulation from there. And then for the thumb, just a plate around here, and then just a couple more here and here. These are gonna be overlapping, that'll be overlapping onto here. To make sure that the design of this gauntlet is plausible before we cut it out in steel, we're gonna first make it out of cardstock and paper, and instead of rivets, we're gonna be using thumbtacks. Now we grab the ruler and just start doing some measuring of the fingers. And this is pretty cool, I actually just learned this like right now. If you use a pen, and if you're using the index card, then the ink from the pen actually softens the index card, so when you bend it, it bends right on the line. So here's how the fingers look all put together. I'll tape them to the glove so that you can see the articulation. So you can see how the articulation's gonna work. I can't bend my fingers way too much because they're just taped on with masking tape. But once it's riveted onto the glove, you'll be able to have full function in your hand. So now I'm gonna take apart the index finger to, I guess, show you how it works and show you how the pieces look when they're taken apart. All right, I've said it 1,000 times before. Sorry guys, I'll probably say it 1,000 times again. I don't provide printout templates on this channel. One of the main goals on my channel is to promote creativity in my viewers, and despite what this everybody's a special snowflake syndrome generation would have you believe, there really isn't anything creative about printing out a template online and just copying everything someone else did. So like I always say, I'll show you guys how to make this stuff, but as far as actually like designing it and making it, you're gonna have to put some work into it. Having the finger all taken apart like this and unfolded is basically the closest that I'm gonna get to giving you guys templates. Because here you can see how all the pieces are shaped and how they fit together and stuff, and they're the same in all of the fingers. I mean, different sizes, obviously. So I'll just point out some key things for you guys to notice. These plates here and here both have these edges that slant forward. This is so that you can move the rivet hole forward, so that it can better reach the plate that's in front, but you can see you don't have to really slant this one backwards. And then also, the top of the plates right here, they narrow towards the front. So this line right here is about 2 millimeters shorter than this line right here. You can kind of see what I'm talking about illustrated right here. This line on the right is what it would look like if this were just a perfect rectangle. So you can see this slanted line right here is the line that you're actually gonna fold on. This is so that every plate that's behind another plate can fit under it. So I made this part for the back of the hand. It's basically just one of the fingers, but huge, and you'll notice here that instead of the plate in back reaching forward to reach the plate that's in the front, the plates reach backwards to reach the plate that's in the back of them. See how there's this backward slant? Then I've got this little piece to go on the thumb right there, and then the regular articulated plates. to go up here. So that's it for the plates. Now I gotta take all this apart and trace it onto the steel. Now for some really substantial gauntlets that you can use for sword training and stuff like that, you're gonna wanna get some thicker steel, like maybe 16 gauge, but just for the purposes of being able to finish this video in a reasonable amount of time, I'm gonna use 22 gauge so that I can use the tin snips on it. So I just used a Sharpie and one of the little paper pieces to trace out onto the steel all of the pieces for the plate that goes on the back of the hand, and then I used a hammer and a nail to make these dents or punches right here so that my drill bit stays in the right place when I'm drilling it through. And it's really important that you drill the holes first and then cut the pieces out, as opposed to the other way around, so that you can control the whole piece of metal, as opposed to the little pieces that can get caught on the drill and spin around and like cut you and stuff. It's a lot easier to deal with this big piece. All the pieces go together in almost the exact same way as the paper version. The only difference with this one is that instead of thumbtacks, this one uses some homemade rivets. To make the rivets, we start with a roofing nail, and then you use a hacksaw or a Dremel tool to cut the nail accordingly to however long it needs to be able to put it through the pieces that you're joining together, and for there to be about 2 millimeters sticking out the other side. Then once you've got the nail through the two pieces that you're trying to join together, you take a hammer, preferably a ball peen hammer, but not necessarily, and then you put this down on a hard metal surface, and then you just tap the end of the nail until it sort of mushrooms out, and once that happens, then it'll be stuck in there. And that's how the rivets work. You just use those to connect all the pieces. Now I gotta cut out all the finger plates. To attach the finger plates to the gloves, you just have to put the finger plates on the glove after you've drilled a couple holes in the back and the front, and then use a Sharpie to mark the holes onto the glove. Then cut the holes in the glove and put the rivets through from the inside. Now what I'm using to pound the rivet is just this big giant Allen wrench clamped inside of my vise. This is what I'm going to use to slide the glove onto so that I can have a solid surface to pound the rivet with a hammer. But if by some strange chance you don't happen to have a giant Allen wrench, you can use a crowbar, a pry bar, a wrecking bar, a 9-inch nail, some rebar, some kind of tool with a steel handle, maybe a steel hot dog. That's about all I can think of. Just anything that'll fit inside of the finger that's made of steel. So initially I was thinking that the tension from the back and the front rivet together would be enough to hold the whole entire finger plate thing down onto the finger of the glove. But I actually realized once I put it on that you really do need that middle rivet to keep it from just like standing up off the glove when you go from a full bend to a full extension. So go ahead and put that middle one in too. And by the way, to get perfectly straight bends on all those little finger pieces, I use this welding clamp. I think it's also called a brake. You just put the piece in there, clamp it down, and then you put it on the edge of a table and bend it that way. You just clamp the piece on the line where you're gonna bend, you put it on the edge of the table, and you just bend it like that, and it gives you a much straighter line than you'd be able to with just bending it by hand or with like a pair of pliers or whatever. This is just the best way to do it. And I noticed that the middle two knuckles are kind of exposed right there. So I made this little metal piece to go on top of it. I gave it like a curve so that you can still get the flexibility out of these two fingers to reach a little higher than you would if it was just flat. But you don't actually have to curve it like that if this geometry would be a little bit too difficult for you to do. But with just a little bit of thought, it's a pretty easy thing to do yourself. To connect these two pieces, I just used some good old-fashioned pop rivets. And in case you're wondering, like, why even bother with the other method, like cutting the nail in half and going through all that trouble, like why not just use pop rivets on the whole entire thing? The reason why is because with pop rivets, you can't really control the tightness of them. They just have to go as tight as possible in order to pop at all. But with the other method, cutting the nail in half and hammering it down, you can make them as loose as you want. So for applications where there has to be a moving part, the nail method is ideal, but for things like this, where nothing is moving, everything is just stationary, pop rivets are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. And in case you're wondering, yes, this is a remake of the plate that goes on the back of the hand. I kind of screwed up this last one trying to make it so that the plates wouldn't separate when you would bend your hand forward. And also I didn't have a really good way to attach this plate to the finger plates, but for this one I'm making it so that the index finger and pinky finger are actually attached to this back plate right here. And also I just think this looks a lot better. So yeah, like I said in the pulley bow video, I want to show you guys every time I mess up so that you're not discouraged if you ever mess up. And yeah, it does suck, obviously, when you put a lot of work into something and it just fails. But honestly, if you can make it through your whole entire life without ever having an experience like that, like where you put a ton of effort into something and it just doesn't work out, then you probably didn't put a ton of effort into anything.
Like in video game terms, for example, if you have a kill-death ratio of 1,000 to 0, but it's because you play on easy, that's not impressive, because a kill-death ratio isn't impressive in and of itself. So don't worry so much about your success-fail rate. Worry about whether or not you are the hardest working version of yourself possible, because that's what's impressive.